a guy who shows up on the scene and says, I am going to stake anything I have to stake to provide you with an alternative, which means we are now about to have a multipolar world. And that guy is who? Vladimir Putin. What about news? What news do you listen to? Just have you looked DSTV? What news? Until recently, before they yanked Russia Today out of DSTV completely, when they started imposing sanctions on Russia, the only place you could watch Russia Today then was if you traveled to South Africa. And why was that? Because these guys never wanted West Africans and much of Africa to have access to any opposing narrative to the one that the controllers and the owners of the unipolar world order wanted the rest of our people to have. Russia Today provides an opposing view to what you see from the mainstream news. And even when they now impose sanctions on Russia, DSTV yanked Russia Today away from their platform, even in South Africa. It's out of our control. MultiChoice sets the record straight on Russia Today. What did they say? They said, feed interruption explained. We receive our broadcast feed from an international supplier, which is then linked to our satellite and delivered to our DSTV platform. Our role as a broadcaster is to provide a platform for new channels operated independently from MultiChoice. They are having to explain the reason why they had to kick out Russia Today on their platform. So Russia Today is supposed to be beaming to our people in South Africa, giving them a different narrative from what the mainstream media is giving. But all of a sudden, because they were sanctioned in Europe, our DSTV in Africa had to kick it out. And now when the people were up in arms, DSTV had to explain. DSTV had to explain. Because these guys don't want you to have any other narrative other than the ones that they are giving us. If the narrative is that Donald Trump is a demon, everybody must see him as a demon. You can't have any other network saying he's an angel. If the narrative is that Biden, with all that he has done, starting wars everywhere, is the angel, everybody must accept that Biden is an angel. You can't have any network saying that this man is a problem. Because you are a slave in a plantation, you are not allowed to get anything outside of what your slave masters want you to hear. So these news organizations are there to make sure they feed you with the narrative of the slave masters, the narrative of the owners of the unipolar world. So you turn to the left, you say, okay, let me go to Al Jazeera. No, you can't get anything different from Al Jazeera because Al Jazeera came with so much power and wanted to bring a little bit of diversity, wanted to bring a little bit of difference, and they came so hard on Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera just melted off a little bit and relaxed. So whatever you see them saying on CNN, you're going to see it on Al Jazeera. Whatever you see on Al Jazeera, you see on BBC. You will never see any opposing view because you don't deserve to see it. You are a slave in a plantation controlled by the unipolar world order. You control your sports out of Europe, control your news out of Europe and America. Then what is left? The military. Do you have any military that can do anything? That can get up and say, hey, I do not want this. You are violating my territorial integrity. You don't have that. Our military most of the time get to work when the same unipolar world order is now imposing and mounting pressure on them to go and do something. Can our military enter into the bush and say, I see French soldiers there, or I'm seeing UK soldiers there, I need them to get out, and then you kick them out? Can you seize their ship like Iran will seize a ship and say you violated our waters? We don't have the power to do that because we are slaves. We have built institutions that are meant to fight against the citizens of Africa, but then bow to the colonial powers that control the unipolar world. So, I'll give you one more example before I get to the next level in this. The next thing, again, about this unipolar world is the foreign reserve currency. So the unipolar owners, the world order owners, decided that they were going to adopt the dollar as their currency for international transactions. And the dollar was adopted and it became a reserve currency. So nations in Africa would take money that are from African resources and we bank it in a foreign currency. So if we want to do deals on the international scene, we use a foreign currency to do our deals. The natural resources through which we even got the money in the first place is from our soils. But when they are traded in foreign currency. How can I have oil, gold, uranium? You want to come and buy, and you are not running around the whole place looking for how to get my money so that you can use my money to buy what I have. If I travel to the United States of America or to the UK, I will change money so that I'll be able to spend the currency they have there. But you come to my country and continent and you impose your currency on me as the currency for exchange in buying what I have. And I accept it. And after, I take the money and still reserve it in your own currency, not in my currency. So whichever way you look at it, my currency is just a worthless piece of toilet paper. Because no one is looking for my currency to do any big business. The only thing people look my currency to do is just to do small businesses that happen locally. Nobody, because the more you look for a currency, the more you put pressure and look for it. Everybody's looking for the currency. You are making the value of the currency to increase. The less there is a demand for any currency, the weaker that currency becomes. So they made the dollar the reserve currency, not just for Africans, so for almost pretty much the whole world. Even when Russia and China traded, they had to look for dollar. That's why you hear stuff called petrodollar, especially when you're buying energy, when you're buying oil, gas, you have to use dollar to buy it. So the whole world was looking, everybody looks for dollar. That's why dollar stays strong almost permanently. That is a construct of the unipolar world. And then guess what happened? When the war between Russia and Ukraine happened, Russia then declared, enough is enough. This thing has got to end. Because, Russia and Putin is really very smart. He saw that the world has labored too much under this unipolar world order. He looked at the whole dynamics and the situation and realized that, this is actually the best time. He saw the timing to be very perfect. And he decided, you know what? I'm not just only going to mess these people up, I am going to go beyond Ukraine and strip them of their glory, because the glory of the unipolar world is the resources from Africa. The moment Russia began to get into Africa, to free Africans, to show them what they could become if they stopped submitting and surrendering themselves to the raping of this new polar world order, the new polar world owners decided we are going to bring Russia down. And that's why the war started. If you go and look very well and see what caused the war in Ukraine, this is the bone of contention. The unipolar, multipolar dichotomy. Because the moment Russia succeeds through Brics, it means that the whole of the collective West is in trouble. They will no longer have access to the wealth of Africa, with which they are able to wage wars anywhere in the world, including the one they are waging against Russia now. So Russia said, we are not going to just end this in Ukraine. I'm going to go further down into Africa, where your strength is, and then pull the plug and take the breast milk out of your mouth, which is why you have the issue of Burkina Faso, you have Mali, now you have Niger. There is Guinea. Senegal is boiling. Different places. It started with France, first of all. When they finish with France, you're going to see the Anglophone ones will begin, the British colonies in Africa. When all that is done, what do you see in Africa? You're going to see a situation where a continent that is being referred to as the joke of the century, the continent that everybody says is in a sorry state, that we are poor beyond poor, that same continent will come up looking far better than what Dubai is today. Why do nations like Saudi Arabia and Dubai fare so well that they are even going to Europe to buy players to be in their own club, while we are busy shipping our children to go and play there? They are buying. You know why? Because they have nationalized their oil and energy wealth. We in Africa don't have access to our own wealth. It goes to someone else. They take everything and give us 3% royalty, 4%, and 5%. They tell us you have to rejoice that you're getting 5% royalty on your natural resources. That's what you see going on across the continent of Africa. What Russia is fighting against, like I said earlier, is something that if they were not provoked and drawn into it by the times, by destiny, which I believe is actually provoked by God, Russia would not on their own have decided to come and fight this monster. It's a behemoth. The monstrosity is beyond anything you can imagine. The tentacles are everywhere. It cuts across. It's like an octopus. It cuts across every aspect of your life. The unipolar world. Now, Brics is coming up with a reserve currency that is going to be backed with gold. Because Russia, after SWIFT, remember I read for you that SWIFT was used to impose sanctions on Iran, Belarus, and Russia. Russia and China now say, okay, so this is what you have to go through by using the system of the unipolar world. We now have to create our own alternate system. So Russia has created alternatives to the SWIFT payment system. And Russia has also decided at that time they were imposing sanctions. Russia said, no more will I do energy trade with you guys in a foreign currency. If you want to buy our gas, you must buy ruble, which is the Russian currency, to get gas. One or two nations began to do it. Some others said, no, we're not going to do it, because they figured if they started doing that, they are going to make Russia more powerful economically than they. But some caved in and decided to buy in rubles. And rubles started climbing up. But the good news is that Russia is not ready to stop. Russia and China have decided, and is now cast on stone, we are not using dollars for our energy trades anymore. From the time this thing happened, it's getting to 1 year plus now, they have not used dollar to buy energy. China and Russia are doing energy because Russia has abundance of gas. Russia has abundance of oil. Russia has gold, has almost every single thing you find on the continent of Africa. They have it. Even Saudi Arabia has also given their consent to that. Trade in your currency. Stop using the dollar so that you stop empowering the economic machine of the unipolar world. Since we are here about to create an alternative which then gives the rest of the population of humankind on earth a multipolar world. That's why about 23, the last time I saw was 19 countries ready to join Brics. Now the next minute we hear it's now 23 countries that are about to join Brics from 19. And now with Morocco all of a sudden shocking everyone and applying to join Brics. You can now understand why Vladimir Putin is 100% sure that the unipolar world order controlled by the West is over. This is CNN. He says, Putin lambasts the West and declares the end of the era of the unipolar world. This was what he said on June 18, 2022. Because Putin was sure that the moment the Russia-Ukraine war started, that it was going to mark the beginning of the end of the unipolar world. Morocco is a strong ally of the United States of America, strong ally of Europe, strong ally of France. All of a sudden, just few days to the Brics summit in South Africa, Morocco suddenly tendered its application to join Brics. If that doesn't tell you that the end of the unipolar world is here, if that doesn't tell you that we now have a multipolar world, I don't know what will. And they are going to now sign the deal for a Brics currency. This is a major defeat to the unipolar world, the same world that all our forefathers have known. They lived under it, died and went, and we're still living under it. For someone to change it, it would take a lot of war and force. And look how it is happening and playing out in front of you. And you think it's just some type of misunderstanding. No, this is why the war in Ukraine is happening. And that war has overflown to Sudan. That war is now moving to Niger. And if care is not taken, it will sweep across the entirety of the West African coast and beyond. Because you are about to remove a monster that has been there for ages. I thought that if you knew, you would be able to know how to place your allegiances and know where to place your support. That's why I said I was going to make this video, to help us understand what we are dealing with. The unipolar world has finished us. It is that same unipolar world that sits down and decides we are going to remove Libyan President Gaddafi, who has done so well for his people. And everybody will agree and they will carry it out. No challenge, nothing. It was because of this that African country presidents were not able to speak up against the injustices meted out to them, to their own populations. Because who will you run to? Whoever you run to is allied with the unipolar world order. But today, for the first time in generations, in ages, we have an alternative from Brics being heralded by Russia, a major, mighty world power, a military power that the whole world knows about. The only one that could have stood up to challenge this unipolar world order. That's why African presidents suddenly are finding their voices. All of a sudden, they are now speaking up. All of a sudden, everybody is talking. All of a sudden, now you see Burkina Faso, you see Central African Republic, you see Mali, you see Niger. Try it. If you tried it in the past, within 2 minutes, you're swept out of that place. Who would have thought that such a thing will happen on the continent? We now have Wagner PMC from Russia that will stand in and say, if you want to fight, come, we're waiting for you. If there was no such thing as a multipolar world emerging, you wouldn't have Wagner PMC. You wouldn't have, if we didn't have Russia, tell me how would you have brought about a change? because people didn't understand what was going on. That everywhere you run to, the United Nations, the EU Commission, World Bank, IMF, all the names you know, that you've studied about, that you've read about, that you hear in the news, controlled completely by the unipolar world. I laugh when I see people say, oh, this injustice is happening, we need to go to ICPC, we need to go to this ICPC that took Laurent Gbagbo of Ivory Coast and charged him with all kinds of nonsense and took him to the International Criminal Court so that they could install a pro-France Alassane Ouattara. And after installing him, what happened? They brought this man, after humiliating him in front of the whole world with his family, they brought him back and said no charges at all. 0 charges, controlled by the same unipolar world. That's why when you are seeking justice from all the arms connected to them, you never get it. They may have different names, but they are the same. It is only now that an alternative is just suddenly beginning to emerge. And that's why you see Africans themselves are seeing it, and the boldness in them is beginning to find expression. That's why you see what happened in CAR, in Burkina, in Mali, in Niger, and probably other places potentially. And the West is doing all they can to fight back. You see, we need God. Do you see now? We need God. Seriously, we need God. This is not a joke. This is beyond what you sit around the table and talk about and discuss just like that. This is what we have been dealing with as a people. And I, for one, personally believe that it is not by accident that God gave Russia the impetus to step in at this time. I think it is just because the time of Africa has come. And because Africa's time has come, that thing that has a beginning also has an end. I always say in my posts on Twitter that every single slavery in this world has an expiry date. Our slavery in Africa has expired. The beginning of our enslavement has now come to an end. And I don't think there is anything that anyone can do about it. I just believe it is our time. And because it's our time, we will win and we will shine. And all the glory will return to the Most High God. I love you with all my heart, and let's keep hope alive and keep praying for the best outcome on what is happening in Niger Republic. God bless you.